During the time of the Xbox 360, Call of Duty wasn't just one of the biggest franchises in gaming, it was the biggest franchise in gaming, or at least it felt like it was. If you were to look at the top selling games on the 360 and PS3, multiple Call of Duty titles are going to show up in that list, and it did quite well for a few reasons. Its marketing was everywhere, from signs in every store and commercials on every TV network to witty commercials for map packs, and let's not forget the famous live action launch trailers. They went all out with the marketing. At one time, they even had tie ins with Mountain Dew when they'd release Game Fuel at the same time yearly. Call of Duty also ran at 60 frames a second and kept a distinct gameplay style for the most part. But perhaps most importantly, Call of Duty was the perfect tie in to the social nature of online gaming during the 360 era. Before the rise of mic-less lobbies and games with no voice chat, before the rise of stripped-down multiplayer games with no features or content that cost $60, before Twitch streamers, before spamming the character voice button would get you banned from online games, back when you could still make a joke without some screeching lunatic coming in and telling you that you're offending someone somewhere and literally killing certain groups because you made a joke about them. And before game journalists wrote articles about how someone called them a faggot when they were playing Overwatch and how games need to remove voice chat for that reason. But ever since the Xbox One and PS4 came out, the Call of Duty franchise has pretty much sputtered out. Even before the generation began, the series was sputtering out, with Modern Warfare 3 being seen as a mediocre reskin of Modern Warfare 2, and while Black Ops 2 later went on to be seen as the best Call of Duty title, or at least up there with the best Call of Duty titles, initially it alienated kids who saw Modern Warfare 2 as a realistic game, and thought playing in a future setting and shit was dumb. Or in their own words, fuck this future shit. When the generation began, however, that's when the Call of Duty series really took a nosedive. Call of Duty Ghosts was just another mediocre cash in, a disappointment following a game that was essentially a fitting set off to one of the most popular games of the previous console generation, and to that generation in particular. Advanced Warfare, on the other hand, tried to reinvent the series after Ghosts flopped, while lots of E3 hype went to Respawn's Titanfall, a game developed by ex Infinity War developers. Advanced Warfare introduced an arena-style shooter movement system, and maps designed around this movement system. It looked great, it was a fun game, and while the critics liked it, the movement system alienated Call of Duty players who wanted another game that was barely changed, or essentially Modern Warfare 2 again. Furthermore, the game introduced loot boxes to the series, which mostly had skins, equipment for your character, and mostly minor gun variants. Despite this, the gun variants were enough of a reason to give a Call of Duty player another excuse to complain when they got killed. And now there was another reason besides lag, campers, and fucking hacker to whine on the mic about how they got killed again. Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare replaced the movement system again with a slower movement system that used a Halo Reach style jetpack, were terrible to play, and Black Ops 3 had so-so graphics. Furthermore, the main complaints from Advanced Warfare carried over. It had loot boxes, and it did not have on-foot gameplay, or boots on the ground as the Call of Duty players loved to call it. With constant disappointments, the Call of Duty franchise exhibited a symptom that it's on life support. Fans have been far more excited for re-releases of older titles in the franchise than the new releases. Modern Warfare Remastered, for the most part, was a bust. Initially, you couldn't purchase it separately. You had to buy it with Infinite Warfare, and it had bugs and netcode issues scaring away many players. They later added in loot boxes with an update, and many gamers were scared away by this. By the time it was released as a standalone game you could buy at GameStop, all the hype for Modern Warfare Remastered had died down, and most gamers couldn't give a shit about it anymore. However, on the flip side, most of the Call of Duty titles on the 360, with the exception of the Modern Warfare trilogy and Black Ops 3, have been released on the Xbox One's backwards compatibility feature. This means that some of the more talked about titles in the Call of Duty franchise are now on the Xbox One, and Black Ops 2's release as a backwards compatible title generated a ridiculous amount of hype. Like, holy shit, this is the game that Call of Duty players have wanted on their Xbox One instead of the new stuff, and here it finally is. So, of course, people bought it again, or they put their disc in and they played it again. As seen with the Halo franchise, I think that people being more hyped for a 5-year-old game on a new system than a new game on a new system is a sign that the franchise has gone downhill. But eventually, Activision took a look at what Call of Duty nerds wanted to some extent after their sales inevitably dropped and people started playing Battlefield 1 instead, and well, they decided to announce a game with the things that they thought the players wanted. Activision decided to go back to the roots of the series when Call of Duty was originally a World War II video game. And if you load up the game on the Xbox One dashboard, or even just go to the tab on the Xbox One dashboard where they talk about streams and whatnot, it'll even flash in your face that it's back to the roots, boots on ground gameplay. This has resulted in a Call of Duty game that takes place in World War II called Call of Duty World War II that features boots on the ground gameplay, and it takes place in World War II, like the older Call of Duty titles did. The real $1 million question, though, is Call of Duty World War II any good, or is it another piece of shit? Let's find out. So let's talk about this game's multiplayer, because you know that's where you're going to rack up all those hours in. First things first. Call of Duty World War II is loot boxes, and while people were somewhat indifferent to them at first, over time the mentality has shifted towards get this shit out of my games, as it seems like every single game has these loot boxes. Furthermore, Call of Duty takes it a step further as you pay money to watch your loot boxes drop on Normandy, you know, where the whole D-Day stuff took place at. And there's even a daily challenge to watch other players open up their loot boxes in this area, where you get to stand back and you get to watch all these players open up their loot boxes. This trend in gaming has gotten so out of hand by now that outside of Call of Duty, many are comparing it to gambling, with the in-game credits masking how much money you're really spending, and the shiny loot boxes encouraging you to spend more and more and more on the game in the hopes that you'll get the item you want. So you keep throwing more and more money thinking you'll get the gun that guy who wrecked you used. Sure, you can get loot boxes by playing the game, and it wasn't so bad in, say, Advanced Warfare or other games like Battlefield 4 with that game's battle packs, but it's gotten to the point now, especially outside of Call of Duty, where people are sick and tired of games being infested with loot boxes. It's replaced microtransactions and online passes as shit gamers fucking hate. To make matters worse for Activision's image, and how they've been pushing hard for this kind of shit in gaming, they recently just got a patent for a matchmaking system that will toss up shitty players with players who've bought a ton of in-game shit in order to get them to spend more money on loot boxes and microtransactions, thinking, you know, maybe if I spend more money on this shit, I'll be better at gaming, in order to subtly sway them into spending even more and more money on video game shit. I mean, look at Counter-Strike Global Offensive. When people think of that game, they don't think of Counter-Strike anymore. They think of, oh yeah, crates. Oh yeah, expensive knives. I'm gonna pay hundreds of dollars for a 3D fucking knife. Anyhow, let's get back on track. Call of Duty World War II is essentially a Hail Mary pass for the Call of Duty franchise to keep it from ending up the way Tony Hawk, Guitar Hero, Spyro, Crash, and more franchises ended up, as one last attempt to keep the Call of Duty brand from becoming the next franchise that ends up on lists of franchises major publishers killed off. The first thing you notice about World War II is that the menu in the game is absolute bullshit. It fucking sucks, and I don't know who the fuck designed it, but they're probably the same person who thought it's a great idea to make everything look like mobile shit now. You get this dumbass Metro and influence tab bullshit menu that's been common in some newer games. Whatever happened to the good old fucking menu that worked? In older titles like Black Ops 2 and even some of the newer ones on the Xbox One like Advanced Warfare, you got a basic fucking menu that made sense and was easy to use. Now, sure, Call of Duty wasn't the first game to use a menu like that. I'd say games like Halo 3 did. And Halo 3 is probably one of the most well-designed multiplayer menus in gaming still, in my opinion. But you got a menu that made sense, was fast, was easy to use, and you didn't have to learn shit every time. It just worked. It just fucking worked. You were able to get into matches easily, do what you want, and so and so. It worked. Instead, in this new Call of Duty, you get this shitty Metro-style menu that makes getting into a game a lot harder, and you also get this dumb walk-around area where you can stand around and take orders and open up loot boxes in front of a bunch of random people while they watch you. Or you can watch other people open up loot boxes. Or you can just hit start and find a match. I mean, I don't give a shit about all this. About all this, like, menu bullshit. I just want to fucking kill some people online. That's why you play Call of Duty. Not to, like, figure out whatever bullshit these developers came up with this month. And the menus are also slow as hell, and you're stuck waiting and waiting and waiting. You're just waiting here at this screen, waiting for shit to happen. Even the supply drops, the things made to make you spend more of your mom's credit card on the game are buggy. And I got kicked from the fucking Activision servers for opening a fucking crate. Yeah, that's right, the game is such a buggy piece of shit that the game crashed when I opened a fucking loot crate. And the menus, even the fucking menus are slow and crash when I try playing this game. I had a black screen crash. I had a freeze. I had other types of crashes too. I had all these crashes when I'm trying to play the game, and I think it shows how far Call of Duty's fallen. Even some of the shittier installments like Ghosts worked online day fucking one. And yet this game is broken out of the box with the day one 9 gig update. The game crashed the first time I tried to play, and the second time I had issues connecting to the internet till I reset the game. Then on my third try, I played exactly one match before the game bugged out, and it seems like I keep losing connection or having crashes after every game. And by the way, my ports are forwarded and open to my Xbox One. When I started the game, I also got shoved with some dumb gameplay systems that they're adding for no reason. Who cares about what group I want to select? In the older CODs, there was none of this shit. You just selected your fucking class, and you made a class, and you got kills online. I just want to get kills and play online. I don't want to deal with this shit. But how's the game itself? Well, it's the usual fucking Call of Duty experience. You get a popcorn Michael Bay campaign, but based on World War II this time around, instead of fictional war number 69, and it lasts around 4 to 5 hours for your $60. There's a zombies mode, which is going to likely be popular among little shits who still care about zombies. And of course, there's the multiplayer mode, which is the emphasis in the whole package. This is why you bought the game, people, to play the multiplayer online. Now, the multiplayer in World War II has been the most hyped up feature of the entire game. You get a few typical Call of Duty game modes, and party modes, and some of the newer ones are absent. The gameplay of this game is pretty arcadey, and I think the best way to sum it up is, imagine if Infinite Warfare or Black Ops 3 was on foot. There's no boost pack, but the gunplay feels the same, complete with the same shitty netcode issues those games had. You have to see someone first, or you're fucking dead. The maps feel the same as those games too, like there's a bunch of random buildings with plenty of nooks and crannies for campers to hide in. Spawns are garbage, and I mentioned you die easily. This is the gameplay that exists in between crashes and loot box sales moments. It feels more like the crappier arcade-style Call of Duty titles, which are the newer ones. Like a boring shit show that's not at all fun to play. I mean, even like some of the newer arcadey ones like Black Ops 2 are fun, but this isn't even fucking fun. It's a boring shit show. Kills are unsatisfying, gunplay and gameplay are unsatisfying, and I mentioned this game has shitloads of lag too. At least it has ping bars, which don't really work that well. At least voice chat returns, so you can hear people who wasted their $60 on this game give you their thoughts on this game. Furthermore, while this game has the arcadey feel that some of the newer CODs have, it takes place in World War II, especially since the target audience wants something more along the lines of Call of Duty 1 or 2, or even World at War, and not some modern shooter skin to look like a World War II shooter. But even if it had a modern war skin on it, it'd still be a shitty game gameplay wise. Did I mention you can now play as a female black Nazi, or well, I mean Axis soldier in World War II? See, the game doesn't tell you which side you're on, like with older COD titles, where your factions would change depending on what part of the world you were on. While Advanced Warfare didn't feature multiple factions, it made sense considering the story was about private military corporations. Yet, while World War II featured a variety of factions, including the Japanese, the British, the Americans, the Germans, and some more, probably, World War II only features the Axis with the German Iron Cross and the Allied with the star that is associated with the US Army. You are also reminded that this game was made in 2017 by the fact that this game features 3 sexuality flags and a transgender flag for your profile. That's right, you can either tell the world your sole defining characteristic is who you want to bang or your genitalia, or you can set it to piss people off even more when you're griefing online with a gamer tag like male urinator and a similar joke clan tag. Now, I would wonder why they would put this in a video game about World War II when those flags didn't exist yet. I mean, it's not like there's any sort of agenda or anything going on. No, no, no. Don't think about that, people. Don't think about it. It's just current year. All that needs to be said about Call of Duty World War II is this. Every time some big company says they're going back to their roots, it means they're shamelessly milking nostalgia, oftentimes without realizing what made said franchise big, in an attempt to revive a dying franchise. Furthermore, the reliance on loot boxes that this game has shows you everything wrong about modern video games. They've aped the worst from shitty free-to-play MMOs, shooters, and mobile games and put them in here in an attempt to make more money from the player. Seriously, don't fall for Activision's marketing scheme. Don't waste your money on this crap. It's just a disposable game anyhow. People will ignore in a week. And even if they cancel Call of Duty after this game, Activision doesn't give a shit. They'll just have players go on to play other Activision games like Destiny 2 or Overwatch. And before some kid says that's a Blizzard game, look at what Activision's official company name is. That's all that needs to be said, people. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more.